You're not going to attract a bunch of 6-figure and 7-figure earners, okay, if you don't conduct yourself properly. So whatever your business is, okay, or investors for that matter, you're not going to get the right people if you don't conduct yourself properly. So get up early, have good health habits. Okay, I'm not saying you need to go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning, but take care of your body, because your body will take care of your mind. And in business, what are we dealing with? We're always dealing with this thing. So keep it sharp by keeping yourself physically fit. And at the end of the day, that's going to serve you in so many other ways. That's going to serve you well as well, by the way. I mean, there's all the links to Alzheimer's, everything else as you get older to exercise. But the point is this: if you do all the right things, you will attract the right people. You will have a great life, plain and simple. And if you do all the wrong things, take correction. You and I aren't here to slap anybody in the face, but maybe some of your listeners are saying, you know what? That guy's right. I'm going to bed late. I'm watching Netflix till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting up. I'm yawning all day. I look tired. I don't want to buy from somebody who looks tired. I want somebody who's got energy in their product. When you're selling me something, I want you to be enthusiastic about it.
Welcome to the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast, the ultimate destination for accredited investors and entrepreneurs seeking alternative wealth-building strategies. Discover how to fast-track your journey to wealth and time freedom by thinking outside the box. If you're ready to join the ranks of the Contrarian Capitalists and learn the most effective ways to reach your financial goals faster, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast.
Thank you once again for listening to another episode of the Contrarian Capitalist. I'm your host and your favorite silverback, Sylvania Harrod. And on today's episode, I want to introduce you to my friend, John. He's a person that I've had a conversation with. We've been going at it prior to hopping on this podcast. And so I had to actually stop myself because I was going to keep on talking and going through. And so just to make sure that you guys actually get some type of content and something good out of this message, I figured I press the pause button. Let us get it kickstarted. And so if John, if you don't mind, introduce yourself to the audience and give us a little backstory of who you are and what you care about.
Sure. Well, good afternoon or good morning or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. My name is John Solleder. I live in Dallas, Texas. I've been a self-employed entrepreneur for going on 43 years. April next year will be 43 years that I started my very first business. I've written 5 books now, 2 of which have been bestsellers. One called Leave Nothing to Chance, and the other called Moving Up 2020. Available on Amazon, and you can download them if you want. I host a podcast as well, and what's interesting about that is that kind of leads me to words. You know, words in business are so important. And 2 words that I've kind of adopted in the last 6 years is pivot and agility. That first book came out in December of 2019. The other one, exactly. You know what happened? Yeah. And the other came out in February of 2020. And of course, I do a lot of public speaking. I've been in network marketing my whole career. I've spent some time in the insurance industry as well, where I also did a lot of public speaking. So I'm supposed to be in 60 cities in 2020, all over the world. Okay, I mean, just literally, 8 different countries. I have this whole agenda, I'm going here, I'm going there. And all of a sudden, a little thing called COVID happens. So I had to learn how to pivot. And just like in sports, right, if we're playing basketball and my back's to the hoop and you throw me the ball to try to throw it in the hoop, I got to turn around. I got to pivot. Well, that's kind of what I had to do. I had to pivot from live meetings to podcasting. The agility part came about last year. I got an email from a guy in Las Vegas. And when I read the guy's email, he was telling me how much he loved my show and all that kind of stuff. And I said, wow, this is great. And he said, I should be a guest on your show. And I said, great. And I reached back to him. And he said, what did you think of my email? I said, well, it's great. Thank you so much. He goes, well, I didn't write it. Okay. You have a VA that writes for you, your wife, somebody. He's like, no. He goes, I used AI. Really? Okay. Now, remember, I'm an old guy. I'm 64 years old. That's I'm like, AI wrote this very flattering email and got us on a podcast. That's interesting. And then I said to myself, you know what? Old dogs can learn new tricks if they're open to them. And I started to not only adopt AI, but use AI not only in my podcast life, but in my general business life, using it for a number of different things. Got a meeting this afternoon with some people on a what used to be called a direct mail program. I did a lot of money with direct mail in the 80s and 90s. Using AI. So I don't know how that meeting's going to turn out. But, as a as a function of business, you've got to be open to new things and you've got to be agile. In this economy, you got to be agile. I believe we live at the greatest time in human history when it comes to tools to build and grow businesses with, but only, once again, if you apply yourself. Now, am I saying you have to become a machine learning engineer or whatever you call it? No, not at all.
No.
Learn how to use it, just like my car. I assume when I get in my car and I turn the key that the engineer that created that, the engine for that automobile did a good job. So I trust that. It's the same thing with AI. I use it for everything I don't want to do. And I still do what only I can do, which is speaking to people, putting together, concepts in business, and at the end of the day, connecting people to people. And that's what I do. I do what I do best, and I let the AI do the rest, frankly.
What's interesting about what you said is that, like, I evaluate companies just about every single day. There's a certain part or a certain thing that I'm going through to build, and that agility piece is always the thing, because I look at, before like evaluating and looking at companies, I looked at a business as like a building in general versus a living, breathing organism. Like a living, breathing organism needs sustenance in order to keep it going. And so also at any moment in time, if you're a human and you happen to be walking through the Sahara Desert, you're going to have a completely different experience than if you're on the Gulf Shores, because there's different risks and things that are associated. And so when I look at what you were just mentioning about that agility piece, so many companies stay rigid in what they want to do. I was reading a case study around Nokia and some of the pivots that they've changed to being from what we know as the device company to more of like, we are a networking infrastructure company to help support 5G, because they thought about what 5G was going to do before it was, because they could not compete against the iPhone. So that pivot helped create where that business is still sustaining itself. And here's the fun part. In 10, 15 years, it's going to have to probably change again. Because the only constant is change. And if it keeps changing and it keeps moving, it's going to create multiple opportunities. So I was doing my my background on just learning more about you. I read that you've been the top in network marketing in not just one company, not just two, but in five. But was it 4 or 5? I couldn't remember.
4.
Yeah, you're a unicorn, my friend, because most network marketing individuals that I find are somewhere wallowing in the shallow end of the kiddie pool, and they never even know there's a whole ocean out there. So tell me more about that journey and like what helped you propel there.
It's funny. Early on in my career, a couple of things happened. First of all, 1983, I'm graduating college. I can't find a job. The economy has got the wind sucked out of it. The Carter administration did a lot of damage to the country financially. Good man, but never should have been president, frankly. And, we had like 18% interest rates for automobiles. So nobody was buying houses or cars or any big ticket type of thing. So I'm looking for my first quote unquote job getting out of college. And a buddy of mine who had gone to Lehigh University, I went to Seton Hall in New Jersey. This fellow Tommy Houston, he went to Lehigh. And you're a Jersey guy, so those. Oh, might not, but two great schools. Yeah. And anyway, Tom was a couple years older than me. And he came into the health club I was working out at. And he says, "Hey, man, you can start your first business with me for $32. And I'm like, "What's the business?" He goes, "Well, it's supplements." I go, "Well, that's great. I'm an athlete. I'm a wrestler. I play judo. I'm involved in sports, working out all the time." "Yeah, great. Yeah. Try this stuff." And lo and behold, from April 18th to May 18th, and I remember these dates very significantly, I made $800. Now, keep in mind, $800 back then would be about $3,000 today. And I'm a kid. I'm 20 years old. But more importantly, back then, nobody used credit cards. So it wasn't like I was getting a company check. Somebody bought product from me. They paid me cash. So I had like $800 in my pocket. Needless to say, Friday night, I was buying the beer with the guys because nobody else I hung out with had any money. But lo and behold, May 18th of 83, Ronald Reagan comes to Seton Hall to do the commencement speech. And he talks about something that has stayed with me all these years. And that's the fact that in 1932, when he graduated college, very similar economy. And he went back to the swimming hole that he had been a lifeguard at the previous summer. And he runs into a guy who was the equivalent, I guess, of a millionaire at that time, even though it was the height of the Depression. So obviously this guy was doing something right. And lo and behold, the guy tells him, "Hey," he says, "Well, how do you become successful?" He says, "I got a college degree, but I'm a lifeguard. I'm making whatever, $12 a week or whatever it was." And the guy says to him, well, you need to do two things. Number one, you need to find a business you're passionate about. And number two, you need to find a mentor who will teach you that business. And in Reagan's case, of course, with broadcasting, and one thing led to another. He became a broadcaster for an affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, and somebody heard him and, got him out to California, and the rest, as they say, is history. But that lesson really impacted me because I realized over the last 30 days, I had learned a lot and I was being mentored. About 30 days later, give or take, and I don't remember the date in June, but I went to Hartford, Connecticut. And the guy giving the meeting quoted Jim Rohn. He said, for things to change, you have to change. And for things to get better, you have to get better. I said, whoa, I'm blaming my parents. I'm blaming my girlfriend. I'm blaming my sisters. I'm blaming my neighbors as to the fact that, I was born on the wrong side of the track, so to speak. Somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
And what I recognized that day when that guy said those words was that I needed to become the brand and I needed to do the work on me.
Mm-hmm.
Not on the company I was with. What a great company, Herbalife's own business, right? One of the big ones in network marketing. I left that company. They had some problems with the FDA. Short time later, I eventually left that company. But my point was, I started to spend time in the library. And if you think our library system started by another great entrepreneur, Andrew Carnegie, who financed all these libraries. Well, anyway, I became a library junkie. And I went in, I read everything that Mary Kay wrote, everything that Earl Nightingale wrote, everything that Jim Rohn wrote, anything I could get my hands on. Old Bandino had written some stuff at that time. I can go down the list. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. I got a hold of As a Man Thinketh, which was written in the 1800s by James. And all of this stuff would constantly wake me up every single day to the fact that I had to work on me as the brand. So when I went into network marketing companies, yeah, sure, companies have products, they have pay plans, they have philosophies. And of course, all of that. But at the end of the day, I went in that I was the brand and that people were joining me. And philosophically, that's what I sold for years, was the fact that you're joining me. I'm going to guide you in the process because I've done the work. I've done the homework, so to speak. Okay. Yeah. We'll find out the company stuff from the company executives or the upline, but we will apply the skill sets. Things like the 10 penny principle, for example, that I talked about in this book. Really simple concept that I learned early on. Put 10 pennies in your left pocket every time you talk to a prospect. Move one to your right pocket. That doesn't mean every prospect buy. It just means that you start to develop the discipline of talking to 10 human beings a day. Well, if you do that and you do the geometry of that and 100 people in your business do that, guess what? You got thousands of conversations going on per day. Now, in those days, they were live. Today, they might Zoom or on some other technology. But at the end of the day, you got all this communication going on in your business every single day. So that's what I taught, and people got it. And people got it in multiple languages, by the way, because I've done business in 62 countries in my career. So they got it in Spanish, they got it in French, they got it in Polish, they got it in miscellaneous other languages. But the point is, because it made sense, because I gave people tracks they could run on that duplicated, that other would hear their story and say, I can do what you did. What you just told me, I can do that. Right. And it worked. One of the people I had some mentorship on was the guy I told you is your neighbor there who made $2 million last year in his business, for example. And I wasn't the only mentor. He was mentored by a number of people, but I was one of his mentors. And, these are the type of things that I taught to people when they were 25, that all of a sudden now they're 55 and they're super successful. And I have conversations with them where they're like, well, you taught me this. To be honest with you, sometimes I don't even remember what I taught them.
I understand that completely.
But that was the thing. And by the way, I was mentored well. I was taught by the two guys that built Herbalife were two of my mentors, Mark Hughes and Larry Thompson. And then, of course, Jim Rohn had a big impact on those guys. I got to know Jim. Wow. And I learned from Jim, by the way. This is a great story. You'll love this.
Go for it. So
I go to my office. I was actually helping to run a company here in Dallas that we had a lot of success with on the corporate end. The only time I've ever been corporate. And we actually grew that company from $160,000 a month to over $700 million a year. And anyway, I'm in my office. This other guy comes in who used to work for Jim Rohn. He was actually helped to write the book, The Seasons of Life with Jim. And he had worked for Jim for a number of years with Jim Rohn Productions. And he comes in my office and he says, do you want to have lunch with Jim today? Now, don't know about you, but I know a few guys named Jim. I'm like, Jim who? He goes, oh, Rohn. I'm like, oh, let me check my schedule. Can I clear my schedule?
Yeah.
Oh, let me see what else I could be doing that might be more important. It's like, I don't care if I was meeting with the Pope and the president. I'd rather meet with Jim.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we go to lunch, and this was a great story. So we finish lunch, and I'm about 35 at the time. The two other guys are in their late 50s. And Jim always had his glasses. If you see pictures of him, always has glasses up on his head. I don't know if he ever wore the things, but and he'd call you by your last name. So he looks across and he says, now, Mr. Solleder, you're still young enough to be helped. I'm not sure about these two old guys, he says, but you're still young enough. And I knew exactly what he meant, because Jim was religious about using your diary, writing things down, because you're not going to remember them. So I literally run to my car. You would have thought I was Usain Bolt, by the way. I ran to my car. I run back. I got my daytime or journal, whatever you want to call this thing. And I start to make notes. He goes, John, just don't make stupid notes. Make notes about stuff that's relevant. I said, okay. He says, let me give you an example. He says, let's say that this young waiter that's waiting on us comes over here. He says something so profound, something so life-changing, something that's going to change your business, change your life. And you go, wow, that was really profound what that guy said. And then we continue lunch and we all go our separate ways. And then tonight you go, that guy said something, but I can't remember exactly what he said. I'm going to go back tomorrow and I'm going to see that waiter and ask him what he says. And you come back tomorrow and that waiter quit, or that waiter's off, or that waiter looks at you and says, I don't know what I said. But if you had written down what he said, that information became yours for life. Mm-hmm. And it was like, wow. And if you were in my office with me, you'd see I have probably over 500 journals that I've kept over the years of things that people have said. Some people who are famous, some people who you know their name, other people you never heard of. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because a good idea can come from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ray Kroc was a great executive. And Ray Kroc put in a program at McDonald's that if you had a good idea, I don't remember the amount, I want to say it was $25,000, that they would endow a scholarship for you. And he had a young man who was throwing out the rolls every night in one of their locations. And the guy, I guess, he decided to take some rolls home. I guess he stuck them in his pocket, took them home. And I guess he's a young kid. His mom made an egg sandwich the next morning on one of those rolls. Mm-hmm. And McDonald's was thrown out. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, it's like, wow, this egg sandwich is good. I'm going to suggest this to Mr. Kroc. And he does. Mm-hmm. And he gets the scholarship. And McDonald's goes into breakfast business. McDonald's wasn't in the breakfast business at that time. Mm-hmm. So how many billions of dollars does McDonald's do in their breakfast business? Because this young guy said, I have an idea. I'm going to present it to the company. They can use it or not use it, right? So once again, and I don't know what happened to that young man. He might be running a company, might be dead. I have no idea who he is or was. But my point is, a good idea, and Rohn's point, a good idea can come from anyone. Mm-hmm. Take advantage of it and make it yours. Think about it. Hey, does it make sense in your business? Where do you apply it? Of course, that's an individual choice. And does it fit your business or not? Okay. But that's the kind of things that I learned from all of these different mentors that I had that have just become me. And I've passed all this stuff along. And I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. And I never really am. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm going to do my homework. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be prepared. I'm not going into anything not being prepared.
No, I understand. It's kind of funny you talk about that principle they had at McDonald's. It was the same thing we had at Amazon. At Amazon, everything could rely on data. So like if I wanted to go ahead and create an idea or craft a program, I had to prove with data, so it couldn't be opinion based, like be objective and prove that this could work and here's why it could work. And so it was called a 2-pager. So you would write a 2-page document, and then you would source all your information of where you gather data from, because sometimes data can be interpreted wrong. You would submit that up to different leadership channels and say, and they would go through, you would make revisions. And so one of the prime examples of this is a small department in Amazon called Amazon Web Services. So there's a guy by the name of Andy Jassy who was sitting there, recognized that, hey, we have all these servers that help us process orders when it comes to Christmas season. But the rest of the time, they're just sitting there. There has to be something we can do or something we can offer to other people that maybe we can turn this into from a loss center to a profit center. So it took him 56 revisions of that document and it was roughly over 6 years before that project got greenlit. Today, it is the reason why we know of this term called the cloud, because they were the ones that created that out of something that was just a loss. And so they saw it as an opportunity. And where he really got the idea was from hotels. Hotels, you don't like bring you bring a suitcase and you pack dressers. You're not bringing all your furniture every time you go on the road to build a house.
Of course.
You go and you stay at a location. He was always on the road. He's like, this is like a mobile home. Well, if people have data like your clothing, well, why can't we bring that into our industry? So him traveling all the time created the opportunity, created the idea, which then became the place of the backbone of why we have applications that we can run from anywhere in the world because of cloud services. So it's also the reason why if AWS was a standalone company, it would be more valuable than NVIDIA because of its market opportunity. It would be the most valuable company in the world due to its fact of like what its growth rate's been. It's over $100+ billion in run rate, and it's growing in double digits still. It is not going to slow down anytime soon because you need more data centers in order to run AI. Yep. So like it's fascinating when you look at that. And I've always been a firm believer that like those breadcrumbs you find in life are wonderful because you can sit there and be stumped and stumped and stumped. I was talking to my marketing guy this morning and he was stumped on an issue. And I said, you're just too frustrated. You can't see it. Give me 10 minutes. I said, send me a screenshot of what you're looking at. And I sent it to somebody else who he doesn't know in a different part of the country. But all this guy does is this task. And he goes, oh yeah, that's normal. Just click this button. He had spent 9 hours on this one task that somebody was like, oh, it's this button over here that you have to click and you just ignore it because this is normal. And the only difference is that guy looks at almost 10 times the amount of number of ads as what that other person looks at. And he has more experience in doing it longer. And those are the things where you go and you recognize how valuable it is of having a mentor. I mean, even before we got on the call, we were talking about how I got into PE. It was because I had a mentor who he saw the curve before you could do it. Like on riding motorcycle, you always look where you want to go. You don't look directly in front of you because if you do, you're going to go straight. You're going to straight into the ground, or you're going to run into a tree because you got to look through the curve of where you want to go, and the bike will go. So if you think about that and you think about mentorship and you think about some of the other gems you've learned through life, especially taking notes, writing down those words, grabbing those different pieces, what would you say is like the one piece of advice you would give to people that is in a place where they're looking to get started? Because I find that a lot of my audience is people that are working at a job that they're tolerating, but they really want to, they really want to experience what you're experiencing, which I refer to as being out in the jungle. Mm-hmm. Because when you're institutionalized, you know chow times at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. You know when it's coming. You know that routine. You know where things are going. But this world outside of that, of like operating on your own, seems like a wild jungle. There's all kind of predators trying to take you out, trying to go through things. What piece of advice would you give that individual from your journey of what you've seen and what you experienced in all those places?
You know, I go back to the first time I met Tom Hopkins many, many years ago. I got in a conversation with him and I said, you know, here's what I'm struggling with. And what it was, honestly, was I was actually a pretty shy guy. I was not, you know, if we went to a party, I was the guy staring down at his shoes. I wasn't in the middle of the conversation. Now, if you engaged me about sports, like you and I were talking about football earlier, yeah. Conversation. But if you just came up and said, hi, you know, nice to meet you. I shook your hand and, hey, nice to meet you. I was like, I didn't know what to say next, right? Mm-hmm. And so I told Tom Hopkins that, and he pulled out a business card. And he wrote on the back, do what you fear most. And then for me at that stage of my career, it was talking to people. Okay. And after that, it wasn't like a light came on because I was already in the process of all the self-development and building my business and everything. But I said, wow, what's the worst thing that could happen is somebody tells me, hey, I'm not interested. Leave me alone. They slam a door in my face. Who cares? You know, to move on to the next person. That's how it's easy to do. But I do that every single day. Almost 43 years later, I'm still used to having people say, not interested, go away. You know, most people are, well, you know, you get the odd person that's rude, but most people are polite. I mean, like myself, if I'm not interested in something, I just say, hey, that's I'm the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. I'm not a buyer for whatever reason. You know, I'm not going to slam a door in your face or be nasty to you. And most people are fortunately like that. But that's what I had to get over. And that's probably people's greatest fear, along with public speaking. Mm-hmm. And with public speaking, because I'm a Jersey guy, really fast, and I still talk fast.
Yes,
but I had to learn to slow down and make pauses and breathe so the other person could respond. That was another thing in my case. But for those people, and I love your question, by the way, those people who feel like they're going to be out in the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you are and you aren't, because, I quote Marcus Lemonis here. Okay. Marcus has a great couple of points. And he talks about the three P's: people, process, product.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you look at Amazon, or if you look at Tesla, or you look at the local luncheonette. They all have those three elements to them, right? They all sell some sort of product or service, right? Mm-hmm. They all employ people, and they all have some sort of process to deliver product from point A to point B of the consumer, getting their money out and buying it, right? And for the most part, all three can be improved in a business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the one that you have the most control over is the people part, because you're the person that's presenting. You're the person in the lead. So work on you. Work on your habits. What are some of the good habits of this top people? Top people get up early. I hate to tell you that. If you're a late sleeper, 8-11, and think about after lunch, maybe I'm going to go to work. Well, if you're in certain professions, you can do that, but you're working for somebody else. If you're working for you, you're up early. I was at the gym at 4:30 this morning. I mean, you're my fifth call this morning.
It's so much easier. Run down.
And now I go to bed early. I'm in bed most nights by 9:30. Now tonight I might be up a little later watching your Eagles beat up the Cowboys. But at the end of the day, sometimes I'll just record a game because it's like, I'll watch tomorrow. I prioritize my day because the people that I work with and the people that count on me, they need my best performance. They need me to be, they don't need me to be tired. They don't need me to be, I don't have it today. And you do have the odd day like that, but for the most part, I feel like I'm constantly on, and I've got to perform for the people that I'm working with to the best of my God-given ability. Okay, that's number one. So get up early, you have good habits. Number two, have good health habits. Okay, you can't be hanging out in the bar and, look, and let me tell you, and you're in the financial business, and I dabbled in the financial business over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody walks into a bar and they see their insurance agent or their financial planner sitting at the bar with a bunch of guys getting hammered.
Mm-hmm.
First thing goes through my mind is, that guy knows all my financial information.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want those guys knowing how much money I do or don't have for a lot of reasons. Okay. So have propriety in how you conduct your life. Okay. If you want to have a drink, have it at home. And God forbid, don't drink and drive. Right. Mm-hmm. But the point is, there's a time and a place, right? And there's appropriate behavior in business, and how you conduct yourself will attract people to you. You go back to James Allen, as a man thinketh, right? You're going to attract the right people being the right person. Mm-hmm. You're not going to attract a bunch of 6-figure and 7-figure earners, okay, if you don't conduct yourself properly. So whatever your business is, okay, or investors for that matter, you're not going to get the right people if you don't conduct yourself properly. So get up early, have good health habits. Okay, I'm not saying you need to go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning, but take care of your body, because your body will take care of your mind. And in business, what are we dealing with? We're always dealing with this thing. So keep it sharp by keeping yourself physically fit. And at the end of the day, that's going to serve you in so many other ways. That's going to serve you well as well, by the way. I mean, there's all the links to Alzheimer's, everything else as you get older to exercise. But the point is this: if you do all the right things, you will attract the right people. You will have a great life, plain and simple. And if you do all the wrong things, take correction. You and I aren't here to slap anybody in the face, but maybe some of your listeners are saying, you know what? That guy's right. I'm going to bed late. I'm watching Netflix till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting up. I'm yawning all day. I look tired. I don't want to buy from somebody who looks tired. I want somebody who's got energy in their product. When you're selling me something, I want you to be enthusiastic about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not hypey, but enthusiastic about, hey, this is why you need this car, John. This is why you need this insurance policy. This is why you need this financial plan. This is why you need this product and network marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I want that enthusiasm, and so do other people. So the only way you're going to do that, frankly, is to take care of yourself and to have good health habits and to get up early. And, if you get up early, too, by the way, it's amazing how much stuff you can get done by noon.
Mm-hmm.
By noon, there's days by noon I can shut everything off. That's not every day.
Yes.
But that's by starting early. And my business is international. So, this morning I was on the phone already over to some people in Asia on one thing, Germany on another thing. Because why? Well, their day is, I mean, in Asia, I'm talking to people, it's 9 o'clock at night over there. They're getting ready to go to bed, And the point is, whether you run an international business or not isn't really the point. The real point is get ahead of the day. And if exercise is something that you put off till the end of the day and you flip that to the morning, It's going to allow you time to be productive through the day, because you don't know during the course of the day. You and I talk now and you go, hey, you know what? I got to run because something came up. You know, my kid got hurt at school. I got to go to school. Can we talk at 3:00? Well, I was working out at 3:00. Well, I cancel my sales meeting to make money so I can go to the gym. But if I do it at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, it's done. You know, generally, I'm not talking to anybody at that time business. That's my time. So that's really important, I find. And I find most top performers, you know, they endorse it. I've worked with 2 owners that are billionaires, neither from the network marketing business. They both have acquired companies through the years. And in both cases, you know, for me to get text from them at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, my time, or their time, more importantly, you know, one is California, one's in Montreal, is not unusual. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the idea of the idle rich, that they're sitting around twiddling their thumbs and eating bonbons, nah. If you're successful, believe me, you're at work. These people work as hard as the rest of us. They just, you know, they've just either done it with family money for a long time, or they're passionate. And by the way, a lot of those people's passion for their business is as great or greater sometimes than people I meet who are flat broke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like if you look at that from the core understanding, like who you are is more important than what you do. Because like if I'm understanding what you're saying, because if I look at it, I fundamentally go like there's nature and there's nurture. You can nurture certain habits, but for a lot of people, it's getting to the place of like, who am I? And once you understand your strengths and weaknesses, then you can really highlight and magnify things going through. You know, like, and so like looking at those top performers, I'm an early riser. So I'm typically up getting the kids situated. When we found this house 3 years ago, we were intentionally looking for space to have a gym in the basement. So now I don't have to go to a gym. I can just go down in the basement. There's plenty of room, plenty of equipment, plenty of stuff, toys to be able to play with. But that helps set the tone, because the probability of me doing it in the afternoon, pretty much slim to none, because life is going to happen. Exhaustion is going to happen. Like you've been running hard for 7-8 hours already. So like, do I want to go lift something? If I have to, because of travel and flights and different things, I'll get it in because I know it's there. But I just look at like, eat the biggest elephant first and just go after it. It makes life so much easier. My friends know you text me late, I'm not going to see it unless I'm up doing something. The game is on kind of situation. But I am totally responding back to you at 5:37. Like you're going to get a message or a follow up or something between 5:30 and 6:30. Like it's going to happen. Like if you want to see those things, there'll be lots of emails that may pop out at 4:30 in the morning because I'm like, oh yeah, I was up. Do not expect me to send it to you at 8:30. It's not going to happen.
Exactly.
I'm on family time and doing those things, but just to land the plane really quickly, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Like I think we could go on for another hour to go through that process, just talking about things and catching up. But I always like to leave the audience with like just a piece of wisdom. Like think about that moment of that quote that you said before, or not even the quote, but Jim Rohn telling you to write something down. So I want you to think of like, what's one thing you want people to like write down? They got pen and paper out right now that they can recall and they're going to remember, and they're going to plug that into their life as they go forward.
I would say it's a quote, and I don't have the author of it, but it's something I adopted early on as well. And if it's to be, it's up to me. And what does that mean? If it's to be, it's up to me. It means that you take the responsibility for yourself, for your family's future, financially and otherwise, and that you take a lead position in your life. And that means that, you know, you work at that level. You don't go, well, let me see what my boss wants to do. Well, what if your boss goes out of business? You know, I have a friend, real fast story. I have a friend that moved from Dallas up to Tennessee. And he's in a really rural area. The guy he went to work for got sick. Guy decided to go back to Canada, sell the business. The people he sold it to wasn't for them. They closed the business down. He's now looking for a job. Super talented guy, by the way, but doesn't want to work for himself. Always wants somebody to pay him, to tell him what to do. And I look at him, and we're the same age. I look at him and I'm like, wow, if I'm ever in that situation, it won't be because I have a boss. I've never had a boss. 42 years I've worked for me. Okay. Now, and by the way, that's the second part. I love your question, by the way. The second part of that is be a tough boss. Okay. Like Michael Jordan said years ago, right? And people are like, well, why do you train as hard as you do? Why do you do the things that you do? He goes, because I have an expectation of what I am going to be when I get on the court. Right? Every great performer, I don't care whether it's in the arts, I don't care whether it's in athletics, I don't care if it's in business, they have an expectation, right? I mean, you worked for a great entrepreneur at one time, right? And Jeff Bezos. So that guy's got an expectation of what it is he's going to do, or he doesn't bother to do it. And that's the thing, is to have that expectation that I'm going to win. But now I got to figure out all the minutia to make myself win.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I got to go through the process, to quote, Lamonis, for example. I got to go through the process. It may not be black and white. It may be very, very gray, but I got to figure it out. And it's going to have some twists and some turns and some points where you got to pivot, some points where you have agility. And the other thing I'll close with, and I really appreciate the interview. This has been a lot of fun. We could go on for hours easily. This is like a business class. The other word today that I think people need to really embrace is another E word, and it's engagement. Be it that you're doing podcasts, be it that you're doing social media, be it that you're doing direct mail response, be it that you're doing whatever you're doing in your business. You got to get the engagement up. We need lots and lots of people to participate in a business today to be successful, be it network marketing, be it life insurance, be it you're selling cars, you're selling Legal Shield like your neighbor Brian is, you need lots of people. Mm-hmm. So you constantly have to be engaging with people to get more people and more people and more people to the proverbial funnel. Okay, we hear about funnels all the time, right? But to get lots and lots of people to talk to, because there's always so many people going to be interested at the end of the day, but you don't know who they are. So engagement. Now, the good news is there's so many great tools for engagement that didn't exist in 1983. 1983, I had my mouth. Today, I've got all these other tools that I can utilize, figure out which ones make sense, which ones you can afford, and engage. And whatever your business is will be more successful than the guy down the street who's talking to 10 people a day and you're talking to 100. Just numbers, that guy talking to 10, he might close all 10, but if you talk to 100, close 11, you made more money than he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's simple. It's simple math. I love your process and how methodical you are in the activities that you do, and so I can truly attest that it's great to see another brother who feels the same way, because sometimes you feel like an alien because you're in a space where you're like, hang on a second, does nobody else see what I'm doing? Maybe I'm the crazy person. And then you find other individuals and you're like, nope, we're just all the people that are out in the jungle watching people perform in the zoo. And so it just gives you such a fun way of living and such a great expression of freedom. And that's what I desire to do constantly. So if people want to go ahead and get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Just go to my website, johnsolleder.com. There it is. There's not a lot of stuff on there. We don't kill it with 9,000 things about how smart and pretty I am, because you can see how I might be somewhat smart. The pretty part I missed. But at the end of the day, you can reach out to me via that. You can find under my name on YouTube. You can find a lot of what we've done in terms of podcasts and even some of the sales training that I've done for one particular network marketing company. So, but that's the best way. Get in touch with me, and happy to help you in whatever I can help you with.
No problem. So everybody listening to the episode, please reach out. John has 2 books on Amazon that he mentioned earlier in a discussion point. You'll see that in the show notes. And as always, stay hungry, stay humble, and stay grateful. John, wonderful conversation, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, and I enjoyed the game tonight.
Appreciate it.